Okay, great. Um, well, all right. Well, let's get started then. We call this a legislative briefing, but actually this month we don't have much to talk about legislatively. It's still, and again, budget season in Pennsylvania, but I don't have any updates for you on the budget. And there is stuff going on, some exciting stuff going on. I guess more in the administrative world, but things that you may be able to participate in comments, and mostly we just wanted you to know what's out there, what's available, what's coming down the pike in terms of energy efficiency for affordable housing, for low-income homeowners, for multifamily owners, for tenants. And so we have three guests today, and I think in order of how they've decided they want to speak, we have Todd Nedwick, who is the Housing and Energy Efficiency Policy Director at the National Housing Trust, Sarah Ralick, I hope I said that right, Energy and Construction Manager at Action Housing, and Liz Marks, attorney with the Pennsylvania Utility Law Project. Todd is going to talk about a new initiative known as the Clean Power Plan, and then Sarah and Liz will be telling you about energy efficiency programs available under Pennsylvania state law. So, Todd, do you want to get started?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. And for the speakers, remember *7 will unmute your line.
Great. Well, thanks, Cindy. As Cindy said, I'm with the National Housing Trust. I also represent Energy Efficiency for All, which is a partnership of more than 36 national, state, regional organizations, all dedicated towards increasing the amount of resources available for existing energy efficiency and existing affordable multifamily housing. And several Pennsylvania groups are part of our coalition, and we've been focusing in Pennsylvania on opportunities to increase resources for the most part through the Act 129 programs, which I think Sarah is going to discuss. But the Clean Power Plan also presents an opportunity to really encourage additional funding for affordable multifamily energy efficiency. Just for folks who might not be familiar with the Clean Power Plan, just a brief overview. It's essentially a federal requirement that is on states to reduce the amount of carbon pollution emitted from power plants. It's sort of central to Obama's climate change agenda, and it may not. You may be wondering what does climate policy like that have to do with affordable housing, but one of the opportunities for states to comply with the Clean Power Plan is to invest more in energy efficiency, which certainly reduces energy generation, which reduces carbon emissions. Many states, as they think about how they're going to comply, they're also thinking about whether or not they should prioritize investments in energy efficiency in their plans, and we certainly think that they should, and that they should also prioritize energy efficiency in affordable housing. So in Pennsylvania, what would that sort of look like on the ground? One possibility is for the state to make more of a commitment to the Act 129 energy efficiency programs. These are the energy efficiency programs that are administered by the electric utilities in the state. One option under the CPP would be for utilities to kind of create more robust programs for affordable multifamily housing to result in deeper, more comprehensive energy savings. A second possibility is for Pennsylvania to adopt a cap-and-trade type system where carbon polluters are required to purchase allowances to emit carbon. The revenue generated from those allowances could then be invested in energy efficiency improvements in affordable multifamily housing. What is sort of the status of the CPP in Pennsylvania? The Department of Environmental Protection is the state agency in the state that is tasked with developing a plan for complying with the Clean Power Plan. DEP was on track to submit an initial draft strategy for complying with the Clean Power Plan by September 2016. EPA had set a deadline of September 2016 for states to submit initial plans, but many of you may have heard that the Supreme Court last month issued a ruling that essentially stayed the Clean Power Plan implementation process. So basically, EPA can't enforce the rule until the stay is exhausted. The reason why the Supreme Court issued the stay was because there are currently lawsuits occurring in the courts to stop the Clean Power Plan. Right now in the D.C. District Court, that case is active. The Supreme Court basically determined that implementation from EPA should stop until that matter is resolved. So that stay has nothing to do necessarily with the merits of the Clean Power Plan rule, but is just necessary, according to the Supreme Court, to provide an opportunity for the courts to evaluate the legality of the Clean Power Plan. And there is a lot of speculation that the Clean Power Plan will survive on the merits. So because of that stay, the September deadline that EPA had put out is no longer being enforced. It's no longer binding. But Governor Wolf, to his credit, has instructed DEP to continue with its work to comply with the Clean Power Plan, expecting that the CPP will eventually survive the legal challenges. And the governor doesn't want the state to get caught in the position of having to restart and rush planning for the CPP once the court challenges are resolved. So where does that leave us now in terms of opportunities to kind of impact the plan that DEP is putting together and make sure that affordable housing is included? There's the Department of Environmental Protection is in the process of sort of evaluating their options for complying with the CPP. And so certainly there is a need to continue to educate DEP about the benefits of prioritizing energy efficiency and affordable housing. The Housing Alliance has done a really great job already on this, having met with the DEP secretary a couple weeks ago. I don't know if Cindy is going to talk more about that at some point, but really just trying to get our priorities as affordable housing stakeholders and advocates in front of the DEP so that they can really see affordable multifamily housing energy efficiency as part of the solution to reducing carbon emissions. In a sense, the stay has kind of helped because it kind of slows down the process and I think gives us some more time to really make that case for including affordable multifamily energy efficiency. There's also a need to engage with the governor directly, since it's the governor that ultimately will approve the Clean Power Plan, the final plan that Pennsylvania submits to EPA. So the governor needs to know that affordable housing energy efficiency should be a priority. And there might also be a need to educate the state legislator, because there might be compliance options that are really beneficial to affordable multifamily housing, but may require approval from the legislature in order to go forward. So what we're encouraging affordable housing stakeholders to do at this point is to think about and identify opportunities for how the state could direct resources to affordable multifamily energy efficiency as a way to comply with the Clean Power Plan. That might be through, as I said, more robust Act 129 energy efficiency programs. It could be through, maybe Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency administered energy efficiency programs. And we're also encouraging stakeholders to continue to educate the DEP, about the challenges that currently exist to improving affordable multifamily energy efficiency. And I think certainly one of them, a common challenge is clearly a lack of public resources available to help pay for the cost of improvements. And we're also urging the DEP and other implementing state agencies to choose to participate in what is called the Clean Energy Incentive Program. This is a program that EPA is offering. It's essentially an early action credit program that rewards states for energy efficiency improvements in low-income communities. States have the option to choose to participate in this program. We think it's very beneficial because it basically provides matching credits to states that make those investments in low-income communities. So we're really urging the DEP to choose to opt into that program through their state compliance plan. So I think I'll leave it at that. I know that's quite a bit of information, and I'm happy to address any questions folks may have.
Yeah, let's take some questions for Todd on the Clean Power Plan before we move on to the Act 129 programs. You can start 7 your phone to unmute if you've muted yourself. Anyone have questions for Todd? Well, Todd, you're going to hang on the call, right? So if
Absolutely.
People think of things. Okay, great. I appreciate that overview. And I do want to emphasize what an opportunity this is potentially for us to move forward and gain some momentum and some and do the education, gain some support. For energy upgrades in affordable housing. And the point that I've been making to policymakers is that this is a segment of the community, segment of utility, of electric consumers that really can't afford to do the work themselves. So if the state wants to capture the reduction in emissions from this segment of the population, that we really need some assistance doing it. All right, let's turn to Sarah then, to talk about what's coming in terms of the Act 129 programs, and maybe just a real brief overview on what Act 129 is and what that means for affordable housing. Again, I'll remind people that star 6 will mute your phone. Star 7 will unmute. Thanks.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah with Action Housing. Action Housing is also a member of the EFA Coalition, the Energy Efficiency for All Coalition here in Pennsylvania that Todd touched on earlier. So we've been doing a lot of work with advocacy for affordable multifamily housing within the Act 129 programs. So I'm going to start with a little history of some low-income programs in the state that have historically been here, and then we can move to what we can expect to see in the next couple years coming out of the utility programs. So Pennsylvania, since the 80s, has had 2 low-income energy efficiency programs. One called LIRP, which stands for Low Income Usage Reduction Program, and it's a statewide utility-sponsored free residential energy usage reduction program designed to help low-income households lower their energy bills, reduce energy consumption through weatherization and energy education. So that's been around, as I said, since the 80s, and it's been utility-sponsored. It's for gas and electric utilities. And the electric utilities will serve multifamily buildings through these programs. The gas companies have historically only served single-family homes, but have been starting to do more outreach into multifamily buildings. But the catch is that they have to be individually metered on the gas side, which we don't see all that often. They do exist, though, so that's been a good start for them. And then obviously the Weatherization Assistance Program, which is a federally funded program that provides eligible homeowners and renters with free of charge weatherization services, which refers to the process of reducing the amount of air infiltration into the home and out of the home. So that program is available to multifamily buildings, but a percentage of the building has to be income qualified in order for the building to receive building measures. We see a lot of weatherization going into units that have a furnace in their own unit, and they can clean and tune that through the program, and that is federally funded, but organizations like Action Housing run the program in-house. So then we have Act 129, which is in 2008 the General Assembly passed Act 129 requiring Pennsylvania's largest electric companies to develop energy efficiency and conservation plans to reduce consumption. The EDCs were allowed to implement these programs in the 3 phases. Currently, natural gas companies are not...
EDC?
Electric companies.
Distribution?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure, no problem. Currently, natural gas companies are not mandated to implement these programs through Act 129. In Phase 1, we saw, Phase 1, which started in 2010, we saw the plans were required to include specific measures for households at or below 150% of the federal poverty income guidelines, in proportion to the sector's share of the total energy usage in the utilities in the territory. No specific multifamily programming was required in Phase 1, and then in Phase 2 of the program, the Commission required the electric companies to obtain a minimum of 4.5% of consumption reductions from the low-income sector, and they permitted the electric companies to include savings from multifamily housing. So that was a good thing. So we saw a lot more inclusion of multifamily property programs in Phase 2. And then in Phase 3, we're seeing much more investment in low-income, affordable multifamily housing. As I said, the first Act 129 programming began in 2010, and there have been 2 phases of energy efficiency and demand response programming. They have been, each of the phases, 1 and 2, have been a total of 30 years in length. The Phase 2 programming will end in June, and then Phase 3 programming is scheduled to start July 1st, 2016. And this Phase 3 will continue for a total of the 5 years. So I think that that's sort of an overview of what Act 129 is. Phase 3 plans were litigated over the winter, and the settlement agreements with the utilities in the state are pending. So we'll see the final plans coming out hopefully pretty soon. And I think Liz is going to talk about some of the things that we can expect to see in the utility plans for Phase 3.
Cool. I can take it up then.
Yep.
I'm Liz Marks. I'm a staff attorney at the Pennsylvania Utility Law Project. We're one of the statewide projects within the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network. And we're focused on low-income utility issues. So a lot of our work is around leveraging additional funds for energy efficiency, which can lower utility bills for low-income folks. And we've been partnering with NHT and Action Housing to do some of this work to increase the amount of funding available, focused on multifamily, because we recognize that, more energy efficiency means more, or more dollars for energy efficiency can mean more affordable housing projects going through with affordable utility packages. And we also hope it eventually lowers rates, even if somebody's not paying their utility directly. But we just finished litigating all 4 of the utility plans to comply with Act 129 energy efficiency programming. So basically what happens in each phase is the Commission issues an order about a year in advance that takes into account the potential for savings across the state. And they set forth some general guidelines to which the utilities must then submit a plan for how they're going to comply. And they submit a plan that includes all the different programming. So we represented one of our client groups, the Coalition for Affordable Utility Services and Energy Efficiency in Pennsylvania, which is a mouthful, but we call them CAUSE-PA, so we don't have to say that every time. But we represented CAUSE-PA in these proceedings, and all 4 reached settlements, which we think have some great stuff in there for particularly multifamily, but also expanded funding for the low-income programs, which I just want to reiterate are really designed to complement LIERP. So Sarah mentioned that LIRP is available in all the utility companies, gas and electric, that are regulated by the PUC. And there's, most of the programs are funded at $1 million or more. And they provide all kinds of weatherization and energy efficiency services like appliance replacement and weatherization, same kinds of things that are available in Act 129. So to the customer, there shouldn't be, it's like a no wrong door. So regardless of whether or not you're looking for, if you're looking for energy efficiency, whether you're served through LIRP or Act 129, shouldn't matter to the company. So we've been working a lot in these cases in particular to make sure that that is streamlined, to make it easier for housing providers to access the programs. So I just want to go over a few things from the Phase 3 Act 129 settlements, which are pending before the Commission. So we can't yet publish what was in the settlement, but I can talk about it. We believe that it's likely that the PUC will be approving the settlements at tomorrow's public meeting. So still not final, but all the parties have signed off on them, and they are public documents. So if you wanted to read more before they're finalized, you certainly can. But we'll be working with the Housing Alliance pretty closely to get some information out to you all on what the programs are going to look at. But here's a preview. So key provisions in the settlement with regard to multifamily. One is that each utility, being the four major ones, Duquesne, the four first energy companies, which I refer to as one because we litigate them all four together. That's Penelec, West Penn Power, Penn Power, and MetEd, PPL, and PECO, which cover the whole state. Each one of them is going to hold a stakeholder meeting with interested multifamily housing owners, developers, and stakeholders to solicit feedback about their multifamily program. So while they've already designed kind of generally and in broad terms what their programs are going to look like, this is an opportunity for the housing community to weigh in directly with the utilities to tell them what they want, what they would access, how they want to access it. Of course, the utility is not bound to take any of that, but their goal is to generate as much savings as possible to meet their requirements under Act 129. So they're looking for how to design this program to best reach you all. So look for, from the Housing Alliance, some information about those meetings that will be coming up in the next 6 months or so. The second big provision that we got in the PPL, PECO, and First Energy territories is that they agreed to align, to the extent possible, the incentives in multifamily properties with the energy efficiency that measures that are encouraged and sort of somewhat required by PHFA's QAP. So if you're looking at a retrofit or new construction project, you'll see in the QAP that there's some energy efficiency requirements. We have been able to get at least PPL, PECO, and First Energy, which is everyone but Duquesne, to agree to make the measures and incentives that they provide through their programming align with those requirements that are already, laid out by PHFA as kind of I believe it's like a plus in your applications for funding from them.
And, excuse me, the QAP is the Qualified Allocation Plan for the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, just for anyone who's not familiar with that.
Thanks, Cindy. We also, PPL, PECO, and First Energy agreed to assist folks with the completion of the PHFA's energy rebate analysis, which is also related to if you're seeking tax credit funding from PHFA, they require you to complete an energy rebate analysis. Well, those companies have all agreed to work with the builders or the construction managers, whoever it may be, to complete that requirement. We also got a lot of provisions in each of the settlements to help the cross-sector issue that comes up with Act 129. So with multifamily buildings, as I'm sure you're aware, they fall within a lot of different sectors. So sometimes they're in residential when they're individually metered units, but then in master metered buildings, they're going to fall within commercial industrial. And then you have the single meter building common areas that are also master meter. So it's a mouthful, but these split between the multiple sectors creates a problem for utilities in administering their programs. And what we had heard from a lot of builders and a lot of building managers that they don't have the time to navigate all those different programming to find the small incentives. So Phase 3 does a lot to focus on bridging the gap between the customer sectors so that the programming is delivered in a manner where if a multifamily building comes to the utility and says, I want to participate in the program, they will help resolve that and help work across the different sector programs to deliver something more comprehensive. So those are kind of the major advances in Phase 3 that we were able to establish. In addition to that, there's a lot of enhancement to the coordination between LIRP programming and Act 129 programming. So lots of coordination efforts to make these programs more easily accessible. So I want to see if there are any questions there before I kind of walk through what each of the utility is offering as far as low income and master multi-meter or single meter multifamily properties.
Remember, you can *7 to unmute if you've got a question.
Okay. Well, it seems like everyone's following along or reading their math, whatever it may be, but I'll keep talking.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, somebody has a question?
Yes, I do have a question. This is Tina from Quarry Redevelopment Authority. So my question would be, on your Phase 3, would this be the actual manager owner of the multi-tenant properties, or would this be the actual consumer that lives in that would be reaching out to find?
Both.
Okay.
So there are, and I'll walk through what the programs are, and each of the utilities is a little different for how they deal with it, but there's provisions in all four of the utility service territories that will allow both the individual tenant in a multifamily property and the building owner as far as getting measures for common areas or in a master meter property to get measures for the whole building. And of course, go ahead.
Nope, I just said okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So
sorry.
Yeah, it covers both. So as far as getting building owners and managers to participate, these programs are going to be available, and they'll have some pretty deep incentives, including in many of the territories when there are low-income tenant units, even if it's master metered, meaning the tenant doesn't pay directly. The individual units will be eligible for free things like refrigerator replacement, other appliance replacement, insulation-type measures, water heater setbacks, all those kinds of good measures. So any other questions? I think as we walk through some of the programs that'll become a little clearer or maybe a little muddier depending on whether or not I'm able to present these very complex things in a digestible manner. Okay, so I'm going to start with the PPL Electric Service Territory and walk through their residential, low-income, and commercial industrial because, like I said, the multifamily buildings often cross residential, low-income, and commercial industrial. So first with the residential programs, single and master meter tenant units are going to be able to access any of the residential programs. This includes appliance recycling, so free pickup of refrigerators, freezers, room air conditioners, dehumidifiers, and an incentive for each eligible appliance. There's efficient lighting programs, which that's more upstream, so they go to the big box stores and other stores, and you see big, deep discounts on LED light bulbs. That's because the utility is paying for it, and actually, residents are paying for it through their bill through Act 129. So when you see those kinds of rebates, that's Act 129 programming at work. The Energy Efficient Home Program provides rebates on energy efficiency measures like water heaters, insulation, windows, for retrofit and new construction. There's also two education programs, the Student Energy Efficiency Education Program, so they're in the schools. If you work with any schools and you want PPL to come out, I'm sure they'd be happy to. They provide energy efficient kits which contain all kinds of little measures like furnace whistles and LED light bulbs and low flow shower heads and faucet nozzles, those types of things. And then they'll be sending energy report cards, which is more of a behavioral-based program. Now, PPL's low-income program, this includes single and master metered multifamily tenant units. So both the residential and the low-income programs are available for the tenant units. If it's single meter, the tenant should be applying, or if somebody wants to do a building-wide, they just would need to get, the tenant's sign-on because they're paying their bill directly. But in master metered, it would be up to the building owner to come and apply for that program, and as long as it's occupied by low-income tenants, the individual tenant unit, they can serve it. So if you have a mixed-use building or mixed-income building that has low-income tenants and the threshold is different in the utility world. It's 150% of the poverty level. I know most housing uses area median income, which poses some issues, but the utilities are well aware of that issue and are working in designing these programs to help streamline paperwork and overcome that. So that the building owner, based on their their yearly annual income checks, they'd be able to. The utility is willing to rely generally on the building owner to certify the amount of units that are low income occupied. So they could come in and serve the whole building, regardless of whether it has just low income or it's mixed with low income and those above that 150 of poverty guidelines through a mix of these programs. Through low income, they're going to get RAP measures, which depend on what the building needs, but they'll provide the measures free of cost and install them directly, all at no cost. So in a mixed unit building, if it's all low income, that's a great 100% incentive. There's no cost to the building owner. If it's mixed income, they could do some kind of a package where there's, for the low-income tenant units, they do it for free, but then there's some cost to the common areas and the non-low-income tenant units through the residential program. But that includes things like appliance replacement. So, you could have them come in and replace all the low-income unit refrigerators. And then, hopefully there's something left in the budget that you could also handle the non-low-income tenant units. There's also kits in education. So if somebody's low income and they don't want to have someone come out to their unit or their home, they could, call and get an energy efficiency kit and some education, which can help reduce their usage as well. And I want to remind folks, I've been focusing on the multifamily aspect, but with low-income RAP, all single-meter units, all manufactured homes, and any standalone homes are certainly eligible for RAP if they're income eligible. So when they come out, they do an audit, they walk through, they do things like use blowers to check where air is escaping, and they seal that add up all kinds of good usage reduction stuff. Then you get to the commercial industrial programs for PPL. This is where the programming is for common areas in both single and master metered multifamily programs. And it includes, just like the residential programs, it includes rebates and incentives for things like all kinds of energy efficiency measures. There are custom rebates and incentives that they can design. So if you're interested in things like combined heat and power for your buildings, that's where you'd be able to design this with PPL, and they'd come up with an incentive level that works, and they help you kind of design how you would go about doing that retrofit. They do energy efficiency lighting programs, and demand response is also an option. So that's PPL. I'm going to keep going through some of this. PECO, we'll turn to them. Their residential program, this includes tenants' units in single meter and master meter buildings, just like PPL. So anybody that's not low income would fall under this residential unit for their tenant units in multifamily, but also any residential customer also can apply. And they provide incentives for lighting, appliances, HVAC. They do appliance recycling with free pickup and a financial incentive. They also do whole home treatment, where we'll come out and do an energy audit and install any applicable measures. They have a new construction program as well, and some behavioral programs. And that, like I said, is these are all pretty vague terms, and that's where that stakeholder meeting I mentioned earlier really comes into play. Is if you own properties or manage properties for low-income folks or for non-low-income folks, and you want to engage in some energy efficiency, you can have a direct voice in how those programs are run and what incentive levels are given. Low-income programs for PECO, this includes the tenant units in single and master meter multifamily properties. It also includes the common areas. So this is all no-cost, low-income programming for the common areas in single and master meter buildings if there's 66% or more of the occupants are low income. So that's a pretty good benefit. If you've got, 2/3 of your building are low income, you could qualify for the common areas that are free in the PECO service territory. And that includes, again, the home audits, education, direct installation of no-cost measures, and also some measure giveaways. So, again, some really deep incentives for multifamily, but also for single-family, low income. With the commercial industrial programs, this is if you have a master meter building with less than 66% of the occupants that are low income. This will be covered under the commercial industrial, which, like PPL, is more of a custom program where they can help you design solutions that fit your building in particular. They also offer combined heat and power programs. First Energy, I'll move on from PECO and cover First Energy. They, like the others, have appliance turn-in programs for the residential customers. Their residential programming includes only the tenant units in single-meter multifamily buildings. And that's going to be appliance turn-in. It's going to be energy efficiency products such as HVAC, appliances, lighting, and home electronics. Energy efficiency homes program, that's going to be some general education. It's also going to be working with smart meters, those who have smart meters installed, to participate in some demand response, which is a usage curtailment. So basically, like during the summer months when air conditioners are at their peak, it would allow you'd sign up for a program to get a reduced rate if you agree to set your thermostat at such and such an amount. So that's a neat demand response program. Then their low-income programs, these also are limited to single-meter residential tenant units in multifamily buildings. And the low-income program is going to be very similar to the others with a range of direct installation measures as well as some education. Finally, for energy companies, the commercial and industrial programs, this is where tenant units in master meter multifamily buildings and common areas in both single and master meter multifamily buildings are covered. Here, we were able in settlement of Phase 3 to get increased incentives for multifamily buildings where 66% of the units are occupied by low-income tenants. So it's a 20% owner contribution, so 20% of the overall job cost to do the common areas if you've got single for multifamily buildings. And I'm going through this pretty quickly, but I hope have some time for questions. Finally, there is Duquesne. Duquesne's residential program includes non-low-income tenants that are in individually metered units. The master meter doesn't fall under residential here. Same types of programs. They also have an appliance recycling program. They have a rebate program that offers incentives for appliances, air conditioning, heat pumps, things like that. And then they have a whole building retrofit program. For a multifamily building to participate, it cannot be a high-rise under the residential program. It can't be, it's defined as more than 4 stories. So this was a provision not in their original plan, but was in their revised plan after the settlement. So it's going to be something we're checking into as to whether or not individually metered multifamily buildings are subject to that 4-story limit. We don't think it should be, and we think that that was an oversight, and they tried to get it in the revised plan, so we'll be revisiting that soon. Duquesne's low-income programs, again, their low-income programs apply to individually metered units in multifamily buildings. And this is, again, a whole home retrofit program with, they come and do an audit again, lighting, faucet aerators, heater pipe wrap, things like that. And then their commercial industrial is where they're going to cover common areas in individually metered buildings and tenant units and common areas in master metered buildings. They have a multifamily housing retrofit program under that provides measures, financial incentives, things like that for multifamily buildings. So that's a pretty quick overview of what's a very complex system of programs. But really, what I hope folks take from is that there is a lot of incentives, especially if you have low income in your buildings. You're eligible for a lot of free measures for the tenant units, and in some service territories, free or very reduced cost common area measures. And also, if you're part of an organization that works with individuals who may or may not live in multifamily, reminding them that these programs are available to help reduce their bill and dispelling some of the rumors that happen. I mean, I've heard from clients all kinds of things like, well, if I do LIRP or I do Act 129, they'll limit the amount of heat I can use in my home, and that of course is not true. They will put things in to help control the usage, and to make it more comfortable, but they don't set any requirements in order to use the program. So with that, I think I'll just see if there are any questions.
And this is Cindy, and I'm going to start by asking you, first of all, thanking all three of you for your presentations. Liz, that was a lot of information. Do you have material that we can put on the Housing Alliance website, or at least links to the various programs, so that maybe we can get an energy efficiency page started and link? We can link to your programs, the three of you also. But that would be very helpful if you can do that.
Absolutely, and as soon as the ink dries on the settlement and they're approved by the commission, I can share this document that I was working from for you to put up on there, as well as, give you some links and things to directly to the programs themselves.
Great. That's terrific, and I do want to let people know also that we'll be doing a webinar on Act 129. I know sometimes it's easier to be looking at stuff. That will be coming up in May 13th. And by then we will know what the Phase 3 programs will be and also do a review of what's currently out there. So with that, I will open it up to questions, *7 to unmute your phone. Questions for any of our speakers. Todd, who talked about the Clean Power Plan, and Sarah and Liz, who talked about the Act 129 programs.
This is Adam Blackburn. I had a question.
Yes, please.
For projects that are, for example, preservation projects under, PHFA tax credits, for example, where we have a general contractor performing the rehabilitation, how then would we leverage Act 129 incentives that would otherwise be installed by PECO, for example, themselves? Or is that a question for the stakeholder meeting?
Liz?
This is Sarah. I think I can probably try to answer that. I think it depends on the utility and how that specific program is run. Because it might be considered new construction. It might fall under like a new construction program, and therefore you might just be eligible for rebates, not necessarily the one-stop type program where they come and do an energy audit and then they install the lighting or appliances or whatnot. And you would have to read specifically in the electric utilities plan how that works. And often the contractor can help with the applications and filling out, what they installed, how many watts the light fixtures are, et cetera, and then you can sort of work with them. But I would recommend once the plans come out, following up with the utility with a call and just seeing how their plan would apply to your project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
And so, as I'm, Liz, you can jump in. As I'm understanding it, so if it is just a basic residential program, like I put new heater in a couple of years ago, and I got a rebate. So if it's a rebate, you go ahead with your construction through your contractor, your rehab, whatever, through your contractor, and then apply. If it's under the low-income program, who's actually doing the work? Do you get your own contractor? Does the utility have contractors?
So 2 answers there. One being, if you know that you're planning on doing construction, either a retrofit or new construction, you should contact the utility ahead of time. Because while applying for a rebate after the fact it can be successful, you can often get a lot deeper discounts and work out a negotiated deal with the utility company depending on what you're planning to install. The term free rider is often thrown around the Public Utility Commission, and their Act 129 programs are not looking to subsidize things that are already in the works. So bringing the utility in at the ground to help build the program along with your construction plans can help get you deeper rebates. So what I'd say is to have the construction company work with the multifamily program CSPs, the conservation service providers, to design it early on in the process.
And I'll follow up with Liz. I mean, that's absolutely right. And then you're able to sort of troubleshoot any problems that you might have in getting your rebates up front before any construction starts. Like maybe the fixture, maybe a light fixture or a hot water tank that the contractor spec'd out isn't on the approved list for the rebates for the utility. Then you can sort of make sure everything lines up so you get your full rebate.
Right. And in the low-income programs, the way the multifamily, I understand, are going to run is that similar to the commercial industrial type programs where you're going ahead of time, same deal. If you have low income, that if you're working on a building that will contain or does contain a certain percentage of low income tenant units, to answer Cindy's question, they should be contacting the utility ahead of time to make sure that all of that lines up, because after the fact, they will provide a rebate within a certain period of time of your purchase. But if you're doing large-scale retrofits or construction, you're going to want to make sure that you reach out ahead of time.
Very helpful. Other questions? We have a few more minutes. Those of you on the call, I mean, obviously you're on because you're interested in this topic. Anybody else currently undertaking or planning some energy retrofits, and or working with single-family homeowners? We didn't talk a whole lot about that, but Liz did mention that the programs that she was describing for single meter would apply to homeowners as well as tenants. I guess homeowners are the primary users, and we're trying to get more multifamily involved. Any other questions or things that you've encountered as you've tried to work with these programs? *7.
This is Tina Freeman again. I guess my question would be is this, and I'm not sure, please tell me if I should be also with that stakeholder, but we have a pilot program that we've started right here, which is an energy efficiency loan program. So we work with single family homes. They own their home. And I'm just thinking at the same time that we're doing this, we really should be directing them to contact First Energy, or who we have here, which is Penelec or First Energy, to have them go in and do an audit to see if there's other things that could be accomplished. Have you? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, if you offer a financing program, it'd be good to get you in touch with the CSP, the conservation service provider that's contracted within that service territory to provide the low-income and residential programming. Because, not only would it create a referral back and forth, but it would enable low-income folks in particular to avoid taking out a loan that they can't necessarily afford, because they may qualify for a totally free audit and services. So, and then if they don't, that's when, the lending may come in handy. But yeah, certainly getting them in touch with the utility to make sure that they can't otherwise get that for free would be an important step, I think. I can't handle it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all, and thank you especially to our guest speakers. This is the beginning of the conversation for us, or the early parts for the Housing Alliance. Many of you have been doing this work for a while. We're kind of late to the game, but very interested. It's going to be an important area for making more homes more affordable. And we're very excited that we'll be part of the process as Phase 3 moves along to convene those meetings with the affordable housing owners, developers, and the utilities and the utility advocates. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to hearing more and talking with you more as we go forward. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Cindy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.